We're not the starters. We're not even the backups. This is the Third Stringers Podcast.
Welcome back to the Third Stringers Podcast. I'm your host, Noah. With me, we got Justin today. What's up, Justin?
Hello there.
Paige is off this week. She's covering the draft, but we got a lot to go into. Drafts tonight. We're not going to talk about that because this isn't going to come out until tomorrow morning. We got Trade Mania. We got pressure on two of the biggest stars in sports right now, Aaron Rodgers, Kevin Durant, who took a picture with each other, actually. And James Harden, where's he going to end up, and which option is better for him? So let's roll. Let's get into it.
First things first. First things first.
All right. First things first. We got a ton of trades to talk about. So I don't even know where to start. So let's just start with the first one that happened, which was Bradley Beal to the Phoenix Suns. This was a crazy matchup here, right? With this trade, I feel like Devin Booker is going to be the point guard now, right? So for everyone who doesn't know, Chris Paul got traded in that trade to the Wizards for Bradley Beal. There was some, I think, first rounds that were included. I think two of them, if I remember correctly.
I can't remember either. I think it was one for sure.
Okay. I thought it was two first round picks, but I could be wrong on that.
Yeah.
And I think a second. We'll get back to that. But there's a lot that goes into this one, right? Because now you got a big three in Phoenix, and over the course of the last 10 years, I feel like big threes really haven't worked out in the NBA real well. So we got another option here. We got Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal. Obviously, that's a big three. Then you got Ayton down low, which I see them honestly trading to get some bench players, and I don't think that Ayton's mentality really fits with the rest of them. But yeah, I mean, Phoenix sacrificed everything to get these three players together, and we're gonna see if it works out or not.
Yeah, definitely a interesting trade. I was looking into it with KD, Bradley Beal, Ayton, and Booker. That's like a majority of their salary cap already. I think it's over, potentially. So they're already in the tax. Their bench is, all right. They're not the worst. They're not the best bench in the world. I don't know if they would be able to sustain the team where Beal's been injured a little bit the past couple seasons. KD was injured last couple seasons. And then Ayton, we've seen he's kind of inconsistent. And Booker, he's growing into more of a lead role, but he can still, inexperienced. He's still on the younger side. I don't think he can lead a team to the NBA Finals or anything. So, and we've seen it most recently with, I guess you could start going back by the Warriors and then the Heat and the Nuggets in the most recent, this past season. The chemistry really is what pushes a team forward into the next level. So if they can get their chemistry to work, if Beal and KD work out well together, Booker kind of leads like you said, he'll probably be the lead point guard. And if he can distribute the ball well, I think they have a shot. But we thought end of last year that they needed another season. Now they're switching things up. Are they going to need another half season, full season to kind of get to an NBA playoff mindset? I don't know. It's going to be very, very strange for them.
Yeah. So if you want to count the Warriors as like a big three, it's different though, right? Because with the Warriors, it was so organic. They drafted all of those players that made the quote unquote big three. They didn't trade for them. Yeah. So they didn't have players coming in and out, building chemistry, losing chemistry. Like they grew with each other. They gelled well with each other. Steve Kerr made it work, and it did for however long it's almost been a decade now.
Yeah.
But let's go even to how the Nuggets look, right? Why they were able to win an NBA championship, right? You had a great starting five that knew all of their roles. Mm-hmm. You had you didn't really have any egos on the team. You had a deep bench with Bruce Brown, Christian Braun, Jeff Green coming off the bench, and they stayed healthy, which is what finally pushed them over the hump because Jamal Murray finally got back to real health.
Yeah.
If you look at how the Suns built this team, they don't have any of that.
No, they don't.
They don't have a starting five that know their roles. Like Devin Booker's going to be the point guard now. And yes, he did look good when Chris Paul was out distributing the ball, but that's not his primary position. That's not what he grew up being. He wasn't the point guard.
No.
You kind of do have some egos on the team with.
Don't tell them that.
Don't tell them that. Kevin Durant will roast me on Twitter.
With his burners.
They don't have a deep bench,
No.
and notoriously they don't stay healthy. Bradley Beal has missed, I think, 80 games over the past 2 seasons. Kevin Durant has missed significant time. Devin Booker, for the most part, has stayed healthy. Last year he missed some time, but for the most part he stayed healthy.
Yeah.
But it's not. It feels really inorganic, and it feels more of like a Lakers trade for Westbrook type. That's
True.
hard to say.
That is hard to say, but I also think the firepower of this team is much better than a LeBron, AD, Westbrook
Absolutely.
scenario. Like KD, one of the best shooters of all time. Bradley Beal, when he's on, he's getting 25, 30 points a game. Booker, we've seen do the same thing. So they can shoot lights out. It's just if they're all on the court is the issue.
Yeah, it's either going to go one of 2 ways. Either they're going to gel really well, they're going to find some vets, they're going to trade Ayton for some bench players, and it's going to work out really well, or I think it's going to crash and burn.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's going to fit somewhere in between. I think it's going to be one of 2.
Yeah. I hope for the Suns owner's sake that they do all right because he's paying a lot of money for this team and he's expecting a championship. If I'm a Suns fan, which I know Paige isn't here, she's our resident Suns fan, if they don't make it to the Western Conference Finals, it's a failure this season.
Absolutely.
In my opinion.
Yeah, it's championship or bust.
100%.
They've already made it to the championship before, and they've gotten the taste of it. The owner wants a championship, and he has clearly shown that he doesn't care what happens for the future as long as he gets a championship now.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's move on to the next one. Let's start with the trade that should have been first. So initially, there were reports that came out that Kristaps Porzingis was going to the Celtics. Malcolm Brogdon was going to the Clippers.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Morris and I think a bench player off the Celtics bench was going to. I don't think Marcus Smart was in the original. Was he?
Okay. I don't know.
I don't think he was. I think it was just Brogdon.
Oh, okay.
Peyton Pritchard maybe was going back to the Wizards. And I think there was some compensation in like first round picks and everything.
Yeah.
That trade fell through because the Clippers didn't like what they saw in Malcolm Brogdon's physical, which is kind of alarming when you think about it because they were willing to take risks on Kawhi and Paul George.
Yeah, that's true.
And they didn't take a risk on Brogdon.
That's true.
So how bad is Brogdon's ankle?
I feel bad for Brogdon. I feel like a few years ago he was on the Bucks, right? I feel like he was a decent player. Like he was
Rookie of the year.
Yeah, he was a solid player for them, and now it's like end of this past season he didn't play a minute for the Celtics. I felt bad for it. I know he was injured, but
yeah, he is. To be honest with you, when he's on the court, he's a fantastic player. He kind of fits everyone's scheme where he can shoot or he can distribute the ball pretty well.
Yeah.
He's not stellar at either one, but he can play both sides.
Yeah.
And he'd be a nice role player. But that trade fell through. So then we saw trade happen late in the night. Porzingis still ended up going to the Celtics. Marcus Smart went to the Grizzlies. And Tyus Jones. Why can I never remember all these?
There's a lot of names. That's fair.
A lot of names. Tyus Jones is going to the Wizards. And there's some more trade.
There's compensation, picks, something else is involved there.
Yeah. Tyus Jones is going to the Wizards. There's moving parts, first round picks involved. I know. I think the Grizzlies' first round pick went back to the Celtics as well.
I believe that, yeah.
Um, so all in all, it depends how you value this whole thing, right? I don't see Porzingis as a stellar option for the Celtics. I think they should have ran it back with the team that they had, to be honest with you. If anything, they should have traded Jaylen Brown. But, well, I've already spoken too much on that trade. But if they really wanted to, gel, I think they really should have just fired their coach, ran it back with a different coach. Because they have the team, they have the players. It just feels like something's off with their chemistry, and I don't know if a new coach would have helped that.
See, I don't mind their coach. I think their coach definitely learned a lot in the playoffs. He kind of started off rough, and then he kind of started to slowly make adjustments as time went on. The series with the Heat, I think, really helped him out, and like just growth. Obviously, he lost, but whatever. I like Kristaps going to the Celtics. I think what they were missing was they had three dominant guards. I mean, you can't really say Marcus Smart's dominant, but he's a good guard. Like he would be a solid guard in any other team. And you have Jaylen Brown. Jason Tatum's basically a guard. He's a 6'10" guard or whatever, however tall he is.
Mm-hmm.
What they needed was a big guy to really hold it all together. And Robert Williams III is a good defensive center, but he's not going to go out there and put up 20 points a night. And I think Kristaps can do that, especially with good guard play from Jason Tatum. Like I'm imagining a Jason Tatum and Kristaps pick and roll scenario, and I feel like that's great for the team. Like that would be a very good play for them to go to all the time, because Jason Tatum likes to just do ISO. That whole team likes to do ISO. But now I feel like they can actually start to get other players involved, because you couldn't do much with the Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum. Like if they're on the court at the same time, what are they going to do? Like, dribble handoff, like kick.
I think that's where the biggest benefit is them, because man, at the end of the season, it felt like they were going to Marcus Smart more than he's probably deserving of it.
Yeah.
Like he was taking last shots.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you have Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, who are, they're better. They're better than Marcus
They're
Smart.
straight up better.
And they were just choosing to kick it out to Marcus Smart every single time. Like they were designing plays for him. And I understand he's got experience and he has a history and he's a good player. Mm-hmm. I just don't see him as a go-to final shot type of guy.
I agree.
And I think that's why they made this trade.
Yeah.
I think Marcus Smart was trying to run the team and run it through him. And he just needed a new location, which I get. Yeah. I understand it.
I like him going to Grizzlies. Also, side note, I think because of this trade, they're not getting rid of Jaylen Brown. They're not trading him.
No, absolutely not.
So
no.
For all intents and purposes, this is the Celtics team I'm expecting to go into the season.
Correct.
Marcus Smart to the Grizzlies, great, because Ja's sitting for the first 25 games. He'll be a great starting point guard for them now. And once Ja's back, he'll be a great tandem with him and can kind of help him develop into a better decision-wise player on and off the court. So that'll be good for him.
Yeah, and let's be honest. Marcus Smart is a better version of Dillon Brooks.
100%.
Like that's his mentality. He gets in players' heads, but he can back it up.
Yeah.
That's what Dillon Brooks couldn't do. That's why he's going to Taiwan.
Exactly.
He's playing with Dwight Howard, but
Jesus.
Yeah, he's a better version of him, and he'll be able to run the team while Ja's out. You are correct.
100%.
It was a great trade for them. I don't think they need that first round pick. I think they have enough young players that they can build around. Mm-hmm. It's just going to be interesting to see what their starting five is when Ja gets back.
Yeah.
Because I see it as Ja, Marcus Smart, Desmond Bane, and that's where it gets a little confusing. Do you put Brandon Clark in the starting role at power forward and Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 5? Or do you put Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 4 and put Steven Adams as your starting center?
See, I like Steven Adams a lot. I would go that route. I also am a more traditional mindset with basketball, but if you're playing small ball, put Jaren Jackson at the 5. Mm-hmm. That works too.
Yeah.
They have options, which is good.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even consider it small ball with Jaren Jackson being 6'11" and
well, yeah, that's true.
One of the best shot blockers in the league.
He just feels more like a power forward.
Yeah. I mean, anyone standing next to Steven Adams, I think, looks small.
Yeah, exactly. That's very true.
But rolling back to the Celtics, the starting five there is going to be interesting as well, because they can go one of two ways, kind of what the Grizzlies can do as well, where they can put Brogdon at point, which I think it's going to be their starting point guard, which I get, and that's where it gets confusing. Do you put Derek White in the starting role at 2, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and then Porzingis, or do you put Robert Williams in the starting role and you go bigger, where you go Brogdon, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, Porzingis at the 4, and Robert Williams down low?
I guess it depends. If I haven't seen Kristaps play that much recently.
Mm-hmm.
How well can he shoot? Which back when he was healthier before his major injury, he was shooting pretty decent. I don't know. It depends on how he moves and if he can space out the floor the way they need him to. But yeah, another option for them too. I like having 2 big guys down on the court if Kristaps can shoot it. So that's not a bad plan.
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty, mobile too. It'll be whatever works out better for the team. I think they'll figure it out before the season. But even if it rolls into the season, it's not a big deal. You got injuries. You can play around with the role or the lineup that you got.
Yeah.
All right, let's roll on to the next one then. CP3 to the Warriors for Jordan Poole and a protected 2030. Yes, you heard that correctly, 2030. First round pick that's top 20 protected. So
that's crazy. So just for the viewers out there, this is like brand new information for me. So I'm just digesting it with you.
So this one didn't make sense for me. I don't understand this trade at all for the Warriors. I understand maybe that they want to keep Draymond for the long haul for the rest of his career, setting him up for him to retire with the Warriors. I get it. But Chris Paul coming back doesn't make sense. So they wanted to offload Jordan Poole. I get that, because Jordan Poole and Draymond don't get along. Yeah. But that this Chris Paul coming back doesn't make sense to me, because Chris Paul is a ball-centric guy. He has to be the point guard. He is the point god, as his nickname suggests.
Yeah.
And he needs the ball in his hands, but so does Curry.
I disagree with that. And the reason I disagree with that is I saw a chart because they were talking about Jokic in the post and how that's one of the best efficient plays you can have in offense for basketball. It's one of the highest scoring points per minute plays. The only one that was higher was Curry with a dribble with an off-screen pick or off-ball pick. That's the only one that's ever been higher in the history of NBA.
Okay.
So that right there tells me if you're the Warriors, right? Oh no, maybe it's James Harden, but Curry was up there too, the same sort of scenario.
Okay.
If I'm Steve Kerr, that's the play I'm running every time. Set off-ball screens for Curry and try to get him open. And now you have the point guy distributing to him. You put Steph in as a true shooting guard role.
Oh man, I just don't like it. They've got a winning formula and it's working. Yes, it didn't necessarily work out for you this last year, but I think there was a lot of other things that were going on. You had Wiggins with, off the court issues that he was dealing with.
Yeah.
And I think if you have Wiggins for an entire season there, I think it's a different story.
So my biggest concern with the Warriors over the past couple of years has been Clay's been injured, Steph's been injured. When both of them are struggling or out, and either when Steph was healthy, he has to score 50 points a game for them to win. So getting Chris Paul in as either a backup or like just rotating those 3 guys more consistently, so they're more rested, better health. I think it's a good idea. You're getting Chris Paul probably for a lower contract. I don't know the contract details. Depending on how Draymond comes back, if he does come back for a lower contract or higher, whatever that turns out to be, you can play around with different people, different lineups. Like the Warriors, I don't know. I like this for them. I really like it. Chris Paul can run it while Clay or Steph is resting. And then if they're all in, you can have a Chris Paul, Steph, Clay, Draymond, and who else cares for the 5th spot? Like it doesn't matter. You're gonna get the ball to Steph and Clay, and then Draymond's there to provide some defensive value. Chris Paul's not terrible at defense, but he's getting older. So
In this scenario, Chris Paul is the point guard.
if I was them and I'm running those three in the starting lineup, yeah, Chris Paul's the point guard.
Oh man, I don't know.
But it doesn't even matter. Either way, if Steph's bringing the ball up, if he passes to Chris Paul, then Chris Paul's essentially the point guard. You know, like they're both point guard mindset. Steph's just an amazing shooter, so he can play the shooting guard better.
See, this is going to turn out to be one of the the lowest dribbling seasons in the history of all time for Clay. He is going to
100%.
sit in the corner and he's going to shoot threes.
And that's perfect for him. That's what you need. That's what you want Klay Thompson to do, catch and shoot. This is the perfect scenario for him.
He's not even going to run around. He's just going to sit in the corner.
I love that.
But yeah, I mean, and let's go to the Wizards on this whole thing too. So they have
Wizards.
Tyus Jones, Landry Shamet. That was the other guy that the Suns traded. Tyus Jones, Landry Shamet, Jordan Poole.
Kuzma just opted out, so he's
Kuzma opted out. So they're very guard heavy right now. Well, yeah, that's fine. Maybe they draft a center or a power forward tonight.
Yeah.
They have Corey Kispert there, who played pretty well at the end of the season. Yeah. So Wizards is going to be down this next year. I get that, but they've built a decent team coming back. I just don't think that it was going to work out with everyone that they had.
They're going to be bottom of the East, depending on what happens with the Pistons tonight and their health, and that's basically it. They're going to be bottom of the East for sure. They're losing Bradley Beal, and they're getting decent role players. If they get a huge star for some reason, like if they, I don't even know who would.
I was gonna say who's gonna sign there.
No idea. They're in a bad spot, but luckily for them, they don't have Bradley Beal's contract anymore, which is a terrible contract. And they can play around now with rebuilding. They're in a true rebuilding season, which is good for them. Because last year was also the same thing, but they were still holding on to his contract.
See, it's going to be interesting now because obviously Tyus Jones is going to be your starting point guard. Jordan Poole is going to be in the starting lineup. It's going to be interesting to see now with all the pressure that is now on Jordan Poole because they know he's going to be the shooter. He's going to be the guy who's scoring.
Yeah.
Yep. Is now with the top defender on each team if he can, live up to the hype.
Yeah. Well, Draymond got him prepared and
yeah
for the Warriors. Good Lord.
All right, let's move on to our next topic. So, Kevin Durant, Aaron Rodgers took a picture with each other, right? Got everyone talking about this next season. Aaron Rodgers in New York, Kevin Durant with a new team again.
Mm-hmm.
One of the top teams, one of the favorites to win the NBA championship.
Yes.
So, who's got more pressure on them to win a championship, either this year or next year, like in the next couple of years?
Okay.
Is it Aaron Rodgers or Kevin Durant?
So, I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers, and the main reason is when you think of quarterbacks in the NFL, right, and who is the best, Tom Brady comes to mind. You have some of the older quarterbacks, Joe Montana. You got Dan Marino. Whoever comes to mind, whatever. Aaron Rodgers also comes to mind. I would argue, his top 3 quarterback the last 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
He will never be considered the best if he doesn't win more rings. He needs at least 2 or 3 to be even in the conversation. Right? The Roethlisberger, both the Mannings all have 2. Drew Brees has 1. Right? And people all consider them in the top, 10, 15, 20 quarterbacks. If Aaron Rodgers has any chance of being considered number 1 or 2, he has to win 2, 3, maybe 4 more. I don't even know if he can physically last that long. Just to a testament to Tom Brady being, the freak of nature that he was and playing for so long. he needs to at least get 4 and beat Brady and all the other stats for him to be considered top 1 or 2. In my book, in my opinion.
Okay, so I see your point, and this is why I don't disagree that there's a lot of pressure on Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
I just think there's more on Durant. And the reason being is I think within his own validation as well as how people view him. Because he couldn't win one in Oklahoma City. He joined a 73-9 win Warriors team that was clearly the best team in the NBA.
Yes.
That had just lost to LeBron, specifically LeBron and Kyrie, who made one shot.
Okay, let's not diminish Kyrie that bad. He was averaging at least 25 that series.
You're right. But it was just a crazy upset. Nobody expected it. Draymond, gets suspended, blah, blah, blah. Joins that team, wins 2 championships right away.
Yes.
Nobody wants to validate that because it was a weird year with a salary cap, and just nobody validates it because he did the old traditional can't beat him, join him, which is exactly what he did.
That is true. That is what he did.
And he left to go to the Nets to win one with Kyrie to prove that he doesn't need the Warriors. Couldn't do that. Then he went to the Suns. Did the same thing. Like can't win with Chris Paul, Devin Booker. Mind you, he did only have a half season.
Yes.
But I think there's a ton of pressure on Durant, and it has to work now because he's got Bradley Beal, he's got Devin Booker. They've got a full year to generate chemistry. And it's win or bust now for Kevin Durant.
So here's my argument as to not Kevin Durant. Yes, he did join one of the best teams of all time, but he also won Finals MVP, right? And both those times. So that kind of is like, okay, yeah, he joined them, but he wasn't carried by them. He still was a major contributor.
You're right.
And then on top of that, he did leave to then go to the Nets and try that. That failed, but it wasn't really his fault. He was the only one that was kind of putting the team on his back. And now he's here with the Suns, and it's still early, but I don't know. I feel like in his scenario, right, he's never going to be considered one of the top 10 of all time. I think by the general mass. Specific people might be. I probably put him in top 10 just because of the way he plays, but he's never going to get 4 or 5 championships. He's going to probably end with 2 or 3.
Correct.
So like at that point, is there really any pressure? Now it's just all on him, like if he wants more.
See, I think it's within his own self-validation too. I think it's in his head.
I would argue it's more in Aaron Rodgers' head that he needs to win.
I don't agree because I think everyone gets to him. So like again, he's involved on Twitter. He has fake accounts.
That's true.
He has to cover for himself.
I think he just loves basketball.
I agree. I think he does too. But I think it's in his head. I think he thinks that, and that's why he left the Warriors. I think he went to the Nets to prove a point that he didn't need the Warriors. Yeah, it didn't work out.
I would agree with that if he didn't then join a super team. Like he just went. Like if I'm Kevin Durant, right, and I want to leave and be my own star, I'm not joining a team with Kyrie and James Harden. Like I think he just needed to leave.
James Harden at the time wasn't even on the team though. It was just Kyrie.
Yeah, but there were talks that he was going there. Everyone was saying it's gonna happen, and still, I don't know. I would argue that Aaron Rodgers has more pressure because he's leaving Green Bay, right? His excuse the whole time was, I don't have weapons around me. I don't have a first round offensive player on my team besides me. Like that was always his excuse, which is fair. Like, and they're both team sports, football, basketball. Like it's not all on one player for sure. But now he's on the Jets where the offense looks better than the Packers has the past few years. And he's kind of getting up there in his age where, quarterbacks don't last as long, blah, blah, blah. He's got his whole spiritual journey he's on. And I think he's doing all this because he needs a championship. He's like, I got to get one. I got to get another one. I need to catch Tom Brady. I feel like that's his burning desire, but he's not going to tell anyone that, right? That's so. I don't know.
See, it's funny because I completely understand what you're saying. And I
Yeah,
think for him, I think he wants one more. And I think if he gets one more, he's retiring. I think he's done.
really.
I think he's done. Even if it's this first year of the Jets, I think he's
Oh,
done after it.
see, if I think if he wins one, he's gonna run it back. He's gonna want to try and do
See, I
two.
don't think so. I think he'll be perfectly content. He'll be like, I got my second ring. I'm good.
Maybe. Okay. Either way, they
uh,
both need to win, and they're both in a weird spot in the history books because they're both great players. They just don't have the hardware to back it up, and if they do have the hardware, it's kind of caveats and stuff. So they both need to win. They both need to do well this season.
they do. They do. It's part of their legacy.
100%. 100%.
All right, let's roll on to James Harden. All right, we just talked about him not too long
The
ago.
beard.
So obviously he's a free agent. He's got two options here. The two big options, I should
The two big
suggest.
ones, yes.
There's no guarantee that he goes to these places, but this is where everyone expects him to go.
Yes.
Either the 76ers or back to Houston, running it back with a new team, new coach. Ime Udoka's there. Nick Nurse is in Philly. So
That's the interesting part, I think.
so where does James Harden land?
Okay, before I
Let's go here. Let's go here. Which is a better option for him?
Okay. Before I say the better option, the one unknown factor is, does Nick Nurse want to use him the way he's been used the past couple seasons, or kind of where Mike D'Antoni was doing Houston? I don't know what that's going to play out to be. Let's just say he continues the path of he's kind of more the distributor. He'll get 25 points. We'll say that's going to be his role next season if he stays. I think he is in the same place almost as Kevin Durant, except he doesn't have a single ring. So he needs to stay with the 76ers. 76ers give him a better shot of winning. They made it to the playoffs. They didn't do great. That's fine. Having Joel Embiid is good. Having some of their role players, great role players. Like, this is a good team. I don't understand why they couldn't get it done this past season. It was very weird. I think Doc Rivers had a big part in it. I think Joel's kind of a weird star, just the way he thinks and the way he does things. And I think kind of in anti to what we were saying with Kevin Durant, this team has gone through the struggle. They've tried. This isn't like a super team that was kind of just like thrown together. They were, in a sense. He was traded, whatever, but they're going to have to fight for it. So if he wins with this team, it won't be written off. He'll get his ring. He's a top 10 scorer of all time. He's a phenomenal scorer. And I think to go against that, if he goes to the Rockets, he's going to be a top star with a bunch of young players that might get a ring in 4 or 5 years. And by then, will he still be in the league? Will he be the one that's leading the team anymore? I don't know. So I think if he wants to be a star and win without joining a super team, it's got to be with the 76ers.
Okay. So the argument that I have here is that it's going to be how, like you said, how Nick Nurse uses him.
Yeah.
Because with the way Nick Nurse runs an offense, I don't think he's going to be the type of player that he wants to be, which is why I think him going to Houston is his better option.
Okay.
I think he's going to get more money there. I think he's also going to be able to run the team a little more. Ime Udoka will, I think, get him more into shape, and they'll
It's a
be
hard
able
thing
to
to do for James.
they'll be able to create a nice team around him. I think Udoka has that championship mentality. He has had some off the court decision-making issues.
So has James Harden, to be fair.
You're right. So has James Harden.
God.
But I think they can build a nice team in Houston, and it may not be immediate, but I think they'll be able to build a nice championship contender next year or the year after.
My thing, okay, let's say theoretically, right? He goes to the Rockets, and for the most part, a majority of the teams stay how they are, right? The Nuggets stay the way they are, the Suns stay, Warriors, Clippers, Lakers. I mean, the Lakers will always change, but let's say for the sake of argument, they stay similar. I don't think the Rockets are gonna make playoffs. Like they're a fringe playoff team. So I just can't imagine one they make the playoffs with a strong enough team to then take them all the way to the finals in 2 years. Let's say 2 years.
So here's the interesting scenario.
Yeah.
They have a lot of young, good players.
Yeah.
They can make trades if they need to, aka Jaylen Brown of the Houston Rockets. But we'll get there in a minute. I think that's a very doable trade if the Celtics don't work out this next year. I think Jaylen Brown mixes it back up with Ime Udoka, and they try to run it back to another championship.
Mixes it back up. That's an interesting phrase. That would be the best upside if going to the Rockets. Like the team,
they have
change.
a lot of that's the thing. They have a lot of wiggle room.
Yeah,
that the 76ers don't have.
The only way the 76ers are changing that much is if they get rid of Embiid, which is still kind of up for debate. There hasn't been really any final decision on that. So
I wouldn't doubt if this next year doesn't work out, I could see him saying, I want to trade.
Process is over.
Process is over. Came, I did, I'm out.
Came, I did, I'm out. Oh my God. He got his MVPs done.
God. But yeah, let's roll right into final thoughts. What you got, Justin?
Okay. So this is tying in a little bit to the draft.
All right.
I'm not going to go too heavy into it because, it's about to happen in a couple minutes. I think in majority of drafts, right? I've said this before. You get a few star players, a few good players, and it's kind of the rest are duds, right? You probably get 5-10 that are decent players. I think the first, obviously, Victor would be great. I think Scoot and or Brandon Miller would be decent. And then I think the rest of this draft class is going to be in and out. It's going to be one of the worst performing draft classes of all time.
Really?
Yes. And the reason I'm saying that is I feel like recently, in the past few years, right, the NBA has really been pushing, and they're a media company when it comes down to it. They're entertainment. They're pushing this narrative, this draft class isn't that bad. There's a lot of potential here. They're good. And I know they've been doing that kind of the past couple of years. But the past couple of years kind of have turned out decently. It was up in the air in the last one or two, but the ones before that, decent draft classes. I think Victor's stealing all the shine, and I think a lot of players didn't want to go into this draft class because of Victor, because of Scoot. And I don't think the talent's as good as it normally is. So I still think there will be a lot of duds like in any other year. But I think it was going to be like 2 or 3 players that are good and stay within the league for a long time.
So I don't disagree with you. It's very top heavy.
Yeah.
It's the top 3 and then the field.
Yeah.
They when you look at mock drafts, they have players besides the top 3. They have players moving all over.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So I don't disagree with you. I just think it's more of like a plug and play scenario type of thing and that's where I think a lot of things happen in the draft that if you get put in the right scenario, it'll work out for you.
Yeah.
And it's all based off scenario. Besides if you have the pure talent that the high upside, Wembanyama, obviously the low projections are a better Anthony Davis. And
that's crazy.
Wow. I'm hey, I think worst case scenario, he gets injured and is, injured for the rest of his career. Definitely. But, okay. I like that. To
summarize, I guess, the NBA draft over the past few years has been all right. This one's going to be a tank, and I don't know what the future of the NBA draft looks like because I feel like there's a 10% chance of a hit. And
it's rigged.
It's also rigged. So I want to see what they could do to make it better. I'm calling out the NBA.
I like that.
If they hear this.
Well, the next thing that changes it and mixes it up is Vegas and Seattle are coming back.
True. So. That is true.
All right. So my final thought is Kendrick Perkins made an
Oh,
interesting
God.
comment.
Oh, where are we going with this guy?
Calling out young American NBA, or I guess just young American basketball players in general, saying they basically need to get their act together because the NBA or like the game of basketball has evolved and has gone to so many other countries that all of these top players are coming from everywhere else except the United States.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about this for the All-Star game?
Oh.
It's USA versus the world. Chance loves it.
Chance is a huge fan. He's howling for it.
We have a USA versus the world game.
I would love that.
I loved the idea. Not gonna lie, wasn't my idea. Heard it from somewhere else,
Yes.
but Twitter is amazing. I loved the idea.
Okay, real
Because
quick, want
I
to run
think-
through run through starters, just for fun.
Sure. Okay.
We'll start with the world.
We'll go. World's easier.
Yes, it is.
We got Luka.
Yes.
We got. Don't know who my shooting guard's gonna be.
Let's go Giannis. Let's just say that right off the bat.
Yeah. Luka, Giannis, Jokic.
Yes, we got those two. We need two forwards.
Hey, do you count Embiid?
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
He's from
Embiid.
Australia. Yeah.
Embiid.
Sheesh.
Yeah, I know, right?
Who else? Kyrie's technically from Canada, right? Or Australia? Where's he from?
I thought he was from
United States?
Brooklyn.
Brooklyn.
Oh man. Oh, this is kind of embarrassing. I mean, you got RJ Barrett, you got Ben Simmons if you want him.
Yeah. Okay, so you start looking up or start talking about USA picks. I'll look up more non-USA basketball.
Okay, obviously you got LeBron, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry, Tatum, I guess. I wouldn't, but
Tatum's
I think
okay.
everyone else would.
Yeah. Trae Young, Tatum.
Trae Young. I mean, shoot, you got Devin Booker. I don't think we're quite there yet because I think the talent level is so high on both. I guess on both sides, but
Yeah.
I think the world just has like the top players, and
And the younger players for sure.
right, like they're up and coming. But yeah, I think it's going to be interesting because I think that's a great option, and I think the league is interested in the USA versus world.
I think they had, maybe it was a few years ago, 4 or 5 years ago, they had like a Rising Stars USA versus the world.
Yeah, I do remember that.
I don't know if they still do that.
No, they don't.
Okay. Because
They should though.
Yeah, I think that's a really cool idea. And also, thinking back on it now, I'm kind of going on a tangent. We'll wrap it up. The NBA, over the course of its history, has had a lot of international players. It's just they haven't been as high profile. Yao
Right.
Ming was there. Hakeem wasn't from the United States.
Tony Parker,
Manu Ginobili.
Manu Ginobili.
Yeah, they've had a decent amount relative, It's always been an international teams or sport, I guess. So
Yeah, for sure. I would
More
say
high
it's one of the
profile.
more global. Yeah, for sure. I think I would probably still put baseball as probably the most global one, besides obviously like soccer.
Yeah.
But like in terms of like United States sports,
yes,
like the four major sports in the United States,
yeah,
baseball is probably still number one, but NBA is hot on their tail.
yeah. That's fair.
All right, we got to go watch the draft. Next, we might have a surprise episode coming out on Sunday talking about the NBA draft. And we'll get into some more NFL news next week and preview NBA free agency.
Yeah.
So that's coming up too.
Love that. If you like
Crazy times.
If you like the episode, subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. We're growing. We're getting better. Love Riverside. If you like Riverside and you want to use their platform, link in description. Yeah.
Sponsoring Prime.
And we are sponsoring Prime.
All right, guys. See you next week.
See ya.